Good afternoon, TechNation. Thank you all for joining us in today's webinar. We are thrilled with a great turnout today with over 350 attendees registered. Okay, first, before we begin, earlier today, registrants were emailed the Webinar Wednesday workbook. If you did not receive a copy, you can download one now by visiting technation.com/webinars and clicking on today's presentation. During today's webinar, all lines will be muted, but you can submit questions during the presentation by using the questions feature on the dashboard on the right-hand side of the screen. Again, if you have difficulty, please email us at webinar@enfusion.com. Today's webinar is eligible for 0.1 CE credits from the ICC. To obtain your certificate of attendance, you must complete the post-webinar survey at the conclusion of today's presentation. This survey will appear immediately on your computer screen. Don't forget, and the speakers and presentations from our Wednesday webinar series are featured at our annual trade shows. Our next trade show will be the Imaging Expo, which will be held March 22nd to 24th in Indianapolis, Indiana. You can visit theimagingexpo.com for the entire educational schedule and registration. Okay, today we'd like to thank our sponsor, Fluke Biomedical. Fluke Biomedical is the premier global provider of test and measurement equipment and services in the healthcare industry. We serve biomedical engineers, quality assurance technicians, medical physicists, oncologists, radiation safety professionals, and are continually expanding our range of solutions to a broader range of health and safety professionals. You can visit www.flukebiomedical.com to learn more. We are honored today to have our presenter, Shirin, Senior Marketing Manager for Fluke Biomedical. For 17 years of experience managing diverse product portfolios, Shirin is a leading force behind product innovation at Fluke Biomedical, providing custom research and product design. She has been instrumental in introducing the newest test automation software, electrical safety analyzers, and infusion device analyzers to the biomedical test market. Shirin, whenever you're ready, take away.
Thank you, John. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. This is Shirin. We will be talking about how you can optimize your infusion test strategy around really increasing productivity and management. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start out with how to select the best infusion pump. As you know, there are a variety of ways you can test infusion pumps. So we'll go over them and talk about the pros and cons associated with each. We're going to talk about how you can optimize your strategy, and then finally discuss some of the latest in testing for infusion pumps. So as you know, patient safety is top of mind, right? We all care about our patients, and accurate analysis of infusion pump performance is critical to patient care. We know the emphasis that the FDA has placed on infusion pumps specifically in the last 5 to 7 years. Specifically, if you get into statistics, there have been a lot of incidents associated with infusion pump failures. There was a stat that was released in 2010, which reported 56,000 adverse events, over 500 deaths, and over 87 recalls over a 4-year period. So essentially, I think we all know that incorrect readings from a infusion pump that is not performing as specified can put a patient at great risk, including death. So it's very, very critical that infusion pump testing be taken very seriously. Now, what does that entail? How are infusion pumps tested? Generally speaking, organizations either go with their internal protocol, or more commonly seen, they go what the manufacturer specifies be tested for any specific infusion pump. This includes physical condition, which is looking at device filters. Is everything clean? Is there any physical damage? Is the display intensity okay? Are all the labels warnings present? The inlets and hoses, are they present? Are they damaged? Power cord, etc. The second part is electrical safety, to make sure that the device does not, the infusion pump does not pose a risk to the patient in terms of electrical leakage current. So in that case, along with leakage current, you're also looking for line voltage, ground wire resistance, and chassis leakage. Then comes preventative maintenance, which is looking at flow detector, verifying that the unit is operating okay in terms of the LEDs and batteries, performing maintenance such as replacement if necessary. And there are some model-specific preventative maintenance based on the manufacturer and the model of the infusion pump. And finally, the performance testing, which is making sure that the infusion pump is actually providing the medication as specified. This includes volume accuracy, which is delivered volume to the patient, flow accuracy, which is making sure that the medication is delivered at the right flow rate, occlusion detection pressure, which means that, as I'm sure all of you are aware, in case there's a blockage, the infusion pump should alarm immediately based on a certain pressure threshold. Alarm functions, other alarm functions associated with that, as well as pole clamp function. And then, of course, again, depending upon the infusion pump, whether it's a 1-channel, 2-channel, there might be other things related to performance testing. But when we generally talk about performance testing, testing pressure, flow, and volume are the 3 top of mind and most critical parameters. And finally, the piece that is often overlooked but is extremely important is documentation. How do you actually document what you did? This ties right into compliance, whether it is regulatory compliance or your organization's methods in terms of tracking that everything is done as specified by the end users. This also ties into risk management. And there are a number of elements when it comes to risk management. When you document the work you did and show that it was done during the time it was supposed to be done and everything was checked off and the pump was okay, you are essentially making sure that in case there is ever traceability required, you have that data readily available to you. There are other things that go into risk management that one should be mindful of. Human error reduction, right? How do you actually make sure that you are minimizing error where possible? How do you standardize the work so that everything is done as specified and required? And finally, how do you archive the data? How do you store the data so that when you need it, it is easily available to you? Now, I'm sure you all know that the recommended test frequency generally by most manufacturers for infusion pumps is about once a year. So before we get into the specifics of the method, we have a couple of poll questions for you. So we're going to go ahead and show you on the screen. Please go ahead and answer. There are 2 questions coming up now.
All right, Shirin, this is Jamie, and the attendees are now able to see the question, how do you test infusion pumps? And we do encourage you to check all options that apply. As the attendees are busy voting, I will remind you that you can ask questions for the Q&A session at the end of the call anytime using the chat feature or the question feature on your dashboard. We do have 48% of the audience has voted. We'll give you a few more seconds, so please get your answers in. And I'm going to go ahead and share the results with you, Shirin. It seems that 69% of the audience chose the last option to electronically test your infusion pumps, and the next highest is 60% with the scale and beaker.
Okay, great. Thank you. And now the next question.
Great. Attendees, the next question will be appearing on your screen now, and it's, what is your preferred method of testing your infusion pumps? For this one, we would like only 1 reply. And as the attendees are busy voting, I will take a moment to remind you that several of the webinars that we have on a monthly basis, you can find them recorded and posted to imtechnation.com/webinars. You're free to go back and watch the recorded webinars at your convenience. And it looks like we have 70% of the audience has voted. I'll close and share the results with you. And again, a landslide with over 75% was the last option with electrodes for the infusion pump tester.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to make sure that this presentation talks specifically about the methods that are most tested, and that's kind of why we asked the question to begin with. So essentially, we just polled you on this. What are the various test methods? And it seems like we have a diverse audience here. Many of you are using the electronic method, which is usually an analyzer based on a certain technology, and there are various technologies that are present in the market today, which is the most accurate, best, reliable method because it provides some tests and may provide automation, but the biggest advantage there is that it's tied in with human error reduction as well as electronic documentation if it's available through that tester. The second most prevalent method, which is the Beaker and balance method, which is a volumetric or gravimetric determination, depending upon how sophisticated the scales are, which is, again, a function of what your role is, whether you are working for an OEM and doing highly specific, accurate testing, or whether you're just testing for flow and volume, in which case you really don't need the very, very expensive scales that are rated for repeatability. So that's the second most popular method, it seems, with this audience. And the last one is the graduated bread and a stopwatch, where sometimes you use it with a stopwatch to calculate flow. So these, if you kind of look at it in terms of basic, better, best, this kind of outlines the accuracy and certain factors related with risk and cost kind of rolled in, and that's the scale we've used to kind of present these methods in terms of the least to most accurate. So we don't have a lot of people here using the burette and stopwatch. We're going to go over the pros and cons nevertheless. Now, of course, it's very easy to use. It really is very little in terms of a learning curve. It's very easy to operate. You're essentially just setting up your burette and you're operating a stopwatch. It's affordable, but there's a high error potential here. And there are various reasons for that. Number one, you have a user tied to this method the entire time. You can't really walk away. You have to be completely attentive. It takes a longer test time versus other methods. There is residual volume you have to be aware of when you're doing the testing with the burette and stopwatch. And finally, you're not just done there, right? There is a manual calculation you need to do. You still need to write the results down. And you still need other measurement devices to complete the PM. You're going to need a pressure gauge to include the testing. So it's a labor-intensive method, simplistically put, in terms of the time and the attention that's required to be able to complete the testing completely for performance verification. Now, Beaker balance, again, very easy to set up, requires minimal training. It tends to be accurate, and that really depends on the scale, right? But I'm sure most of you know that most scales are not rated for accuracy, they're rated for repeatability. So you have to be very careful in terms of what type of error margin you have when you're using a Beaker and a balance. Of course, again, because you're doing everything manually here, this method does tend to be prone to human error. And just like with the burette and stopwatch, you will still need other gadgets to complete the PM. You will need a pressure gauge. You will be writing everything down manually. You will have a user tied to this method while it's ongoing. You can't really walk away while doing this test with a Beaker and balance as well. And finally, with the flow volume test method with an electronic analyzer, now Ed mentioned that there are various types of analyzers there. Some are based on a infrared technology. Some are based on a bubble technology. So this is something you have to be very careful of, because some of these methods are proven, some are not. They're new. So be very careful when you're going with an electronic analyzer in terms of which technology the measurement is actually based on. Of course, there are some strong pros associated with this. You have an immediate issue recognition because you can see the results right on a graph if your infusion pump tester allows you to do that. And here we have featured one of our infusion pump analyzers. It's the ID5, where you can actually see on a graphical display exactly what the pump characteristics are. So if you're an organization that needs a lot of comprehensive test data and trending and analysis, this is a very powerful tool to have at your disposal. Of course, reduce human error because everything is documented electronically, as well as all the calculations are done electronically. Your standardizing work, now this particular analyzer has automation built into it, so you can create templates for the various models of pumps in your hospital and require users to essentially just follow those templates to complete the testing. But one big feature and very important to today's discussion is the productivity, right? And the productivity is not just necessarily cost savings, it's actually freeing up time to allow your technicians to do more with the same amount of time, because you're not tying them down to testing. So for instance, in the context of an electronic analyzer, those that allow you to test simultaneously obviously save you a lot of time and consequently money. And of course, the electronic data documentation piece of it is also not just a time management advantage, but it also gives you the ability for data traceability and archival in sort of a better way. So if you need it, you know where to find the data. The cons are electronic analyzers tend to be a little bit more complicated, so there's a slight learning curve, and they cost more. You are going to pay more than a beaker and a stopwatch, a beaker and scale and a stopwatch and a burette, along with the pressure gauge. So there are pros and cons to each situation. Now, as far as measuring pressure goes, it's very simple. You either have an analog pressure gauge or a digital pressure meter, or it's integrated into the analyzer. So that's another advantage of an analyzer, is you really don't need another gadget. All the measurements you need to make are in the analyzer. We're not going to spend a lot of time in terms of strengths and weaknesses, but I'm just going to highlight that the advantage of doing it in one place with an analyzer versus standalone is essentially that you are reducing error again and consolidating all the data in one report. So you're not documenting in various places, and all of your data resides in one specific report, which is tied to one pump. So that's great because you can also tie that back into your CMMS by taking the report and creating a PDF. That's another definite advantage of using one method that lets you do everything from a performance standpoint for infusion pumps. So the next piece of this is, now how can you optimize your infusion pump strategy? What can you do in terms of measures you can take in order to make how you test infusion pumps easier and better and quicker? So we're going to go through that for the rest of the presentation. At this time, we're going to introduce our third question for the poll.
We're going to go ahead and launch the third question for you right now, Shirin, and attendees should be able to see it on their screen now. How long does it typically take for you to test one infusion pump, including setup, testing, and documentation? Your options are 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, or more than an hour. We do ask that you choose one answer, and it looks like over half of the audience has voted. Give you a few more seconds to get your answer in. And I'll go ahead and make the results visible for everyone. And the most selected is 30 minutes with 43%. Right behind it is 45 minutes with 28%.
All right, thank you. So that's great to know, because when we talk about optimizing the infusion test strategy, right, there's definite improvements and things that can be made as far as testing the pump, but then there's also a huge portion of it is around increasing productivity and saving costs. So we're going to talk about three ways: how to manage risk, how to manage compliance, and how can you curtail cost. So let's get started. Now, most organizations have a risk assessment sheet, and here is one typical way of assessing the risk that basically tells you what is the recommended way a certain device should be tested, or whether or not it should be tested at all. So, as you can see here, based on a total score, which comprises of a number of parameters, including clinical function, physical risk, problem avoidance, and incident history, as well as regulatory requirements, infusion pumps get a score of 12, which means that this is a device that you absolutely have to test. So when you talk about compliance, right, how do you actually make sure that you are complying to the regulatory or the OEM test procedures? One thing you might want to consider is test automation. And what basically this means is that it's essentially creating a mechanism where you are automating as much of that entire 30 to 45 minutes of testing as possible, right? So what test automation allows you to do is essentially, there's a number of ways of looking at it, but the most common is the front end of it, which is you connect your infusion pump to an analyzer, which automatically drives the pump and extracts the reading. And the second piece of it, the test automation, is when the analyzer gets the reading, it gives you a consolidated report. So the advantages with automating the testing is, number one, you of course get real-time test results that are very quick, right? Because you're not doing push buttons anymore. The analyzer is extracting the information on the spot immediately. The second big benefit is you're reducing human error associated with electronic data collection, as well as the manual push button approach. The third is you are essentially complying to the requirements around proper documentation, because now the analyzer is creating a consolidated report, everything you need to document, including who tested it, when it was tested, and the overall pass-fail, including any data requirements, which is essentially determined by your individual groups, are all in one consolidated report, right, which is then archived. And finally, you get the means to essentially do trending and analysis if that's something that you need to do to kind of look at a certain type of infusion pump and its performance. And it's also very important when you're looking at predicting failures in the future. So there are definite advantages, but the biggest advantage of test automation, if you ask me, is compliance, because in test automation you are essentially creating a template. And that template is essentially reflecting the exact same steps that the manufacturer requires or your organization requires for testing each infusion pump. And because you prescribe that test and you guide the user through that process, not only do you reduce the ultimate test time, but you're essentially also with every single test getting a pass or fail immediately. So a couple of other things that you can do with test automation, and you know, this is proven over years that we have seen our end users go from a manual-based approach to an automated approach. As you've got specific savings in terms of cost because you're reducing the test time, but you're also getting a lot of improvements in terms of quality and efficiency and improved forecasting. So, and finally, of course, the test automation solutions give you a way to tie the data to your CMMS, whether it's through a PDF or whether the vendor you're using, you know, has a means to talk to the CMMS directly. But the point is that by automating the testing, number one, you're reducing human error. Number two, you're standardizing testing to make sure that everything that's required is done the same way each time. And finally, you're documenting as required. The second piece is cost. So, you know, compliance and risk kind of go together, but then comes cost. Now, infusion pumps are one of the highest number of devices in a hospital. So it also means that there's hundreds of pumps that you probably have to go through every year from a preventive maintenance perspective. And one of the big advantages, as I'd mentioned before, of using a tester is it allows you to test simultaneously. So why wouldn't you test 4 pumps at once when you can do that, right? Why would you only test 1? And that's kind of what this is showing. Now, we will get into the cost savings in a minute, but the estimated test time for all of our calculations, right, which we use, which was kind of on the conservative side, was 30 minutes. So what this slide is essentially showing you is that with an analyzer, when you do the testing, it takes you about 22 minutes to perform the test from start to finish, including setup and testing and documentation. So you're shaving off 8 minutes right there. But imagine doing that with 4 pumps simultaneously. So you are kind of quadrupling your savings because you're testing 4 pumps in 22 minutes. I would say that there is a little bit of a margin of error on the 4 pump side because the setup is going to require that you connect 4 pumps. So I can add a minute or 2, but you're essentially looking at 25 minutes max. This is just a simple calculation because one of the things that is very important to understand with electronic analyzers is that there is a definite return on investment associated with the time savings. So, for example, what this depicts, as you can see, and I'm actually really glad that the poll question kind of showed that most of you are testing between 30 to 45 minutes. So consider this these savings to be even higher if you're spending more time testing and documenting the results for infusion pumps. So what this shows is that for a hospital, in this particular case, we've used the example of a hospital which was a 350-bed hospital, and it was actually performing testing on about 400 units. Now, of course, the billable rate can vary, but it's generally $65, which, again, in my opinion, is a conservative estimate. With a weight check method using a beaker or a calibrated burette, we were looking at 30 minutes from start to finish. With an analyzer, an ID5, this is what an ID5 is showing you, this particular example, with a 22 minutes here, we were able to realize a $10,660 in savings per year. So not only are you getting your money back fairly quickly, this is a 4-channel configuration where you're actually testing 4 channels. So this spreadsheet, which is going to be available on our website, so if you'd like to go ahead, all you need to do is essentially plug in how many units you're going to test and how many channels you're thinking of testing with for an ID5, and it'll give you your return on investment. This is also available through all of our representatives. So if you would like to have them come in and show you one of the products, they'll be able to show you exactly what the cost savings are associated with your specific organization's needs. But this is an example that basically shows you that not only are you saving the money, you're getting the money back, you're saving the same amount every single year. So this is a conservative estimate for one hospital. Now we have 2 products essentially. One is the ID5 and the ID1. So the ID1, the associated payback for that in terms of how long it takes for you to get your money back is about 5 months. So if you invest in a product like an ID1S, you'll get your money back in about 5 months, and it's continuous savings from that point on. So that's a good segue into our products, right? So we have introduced 2 brand new analyzers. We've talked about the ID5, and I also mentioned the ID1. Basically, Fluke Biomedical has been in this business for many years. We have over 20 years of demonstrated accuracy and reliability when it comes to infusion pump testing. And we also happen to have the largest number of end users in the world that trust us for this technology. So in terms of our products, that's something that we're very proud of. These 2 analyzers that we've just introduced, we stand behind the specifications, and of course, you know the brand and you know what the products stand for in terms of quality and reliability. So I won't get into that too much, but talking specifically about the products themselves, the technology that I just mentioned consists of a flow measurement technique which involves a miniature burette with infrared sensors along its length. So it's pretty sophisticated technology in terms of calculating flow. And on the occlusion end, both devices, the ID1 and ID5, measure back pressure during flow tests, but the occlusion pressure is essentially calculated by operating a solenoid valve to block the flow of water and creating an occlusion scenario. So those are the 2 important baselines for both of our products. Now, talking about products specifically, the ID1S was introduced about a year ago. It is a portable analyzer. It weighs about 2.7 pounds, has a carrying handle. The emphasis here is really on the end users who want portability and who want ease of use and who want something very simple and basic to carry and do the testing with. So we've made sure that we've made this analyzer very, very easy to use. It is battery powered. It has a very easy user interface. It's very simple to use. It's got an LCD touch screen. It is a 1-channel device. It has onboard memory, so you can store the data and then basically download it later on. The results are obviously stored instantly. And then we also include software. It comes with software called Hydrograph. And there are 2 advantages of Hydrograph. One is that for those users who would like to basically still use this for benchtop testing, they can connect the analyzer to a PC and basically drive it through our software. The software is free of cost, it's included with the product. So you don't ever have to touch the analyzer if you don't want to. And it has a lot of other features like creating trumpet curves, a lot of graphical visual depictions of the data. So that's one unique feature of it. But it also allows you, for those end users who don't really want to take advantage of that and are more keen on the portable aspects and using it on the go, it allows you to basically come back and download all that data to the software and then create reports as needed. So basically a very, very simple analyzer, compatible with any brand, any type of infusion pump. The flow rate is up to 1,000 milliliters per hour. The volume is about, say, 999 ml. The infusion pressure, it's 0 to 45 psi, and it's available in various formats, including millimeters of mercury, kilopascal, bar, etc. So it does all the basic tests that are required of a simple infusion test analyzer. The next one I want to talk about, the next tester, is the ID5 Infusion Device Analyzer. Now, many of you might be familiar with the ID4 Plus. The ID5 succeeds it. Basically, ID5 has built-in automatic testing. It has plug-and-play data entry options, such as you can use it with the printer, basically print right off of the analyzer itself. Also, we've gone away from custom accessories with this one. So barcode scanners, keyboards, you could just plug in, they're USB-based. It has the widest flow rate capability in the industry, and we'll get into the specifications in a minute, and you know what I mean by that. But essentially, it's 1,500 milliliters per hour, up to 2,600 milliliters per hour displayed. It can test up to 4 pumps together, and it's upgradable, which means that although here we've got a 4-channel analyzer featured, what you can do is you can add 1 or 2 or 3 channels at your convenience. So you can just buy a 1-channel format or a 2-channel format and upgrade if you would like to suit your organization's needs. So the ID5 is very powerful in terms of a lot of its functionality, but also in terms of the fact that it packs a lot of capability into one analyzer. It's fast. It has custom auto sequences, like I just mentioned. It gives you a real-time snapshot of flow and pressure, and this is very important because you really don't want to wait till the end in case there is a spike while you are testing flow. You want to know immediately. So it's got a real-time snapshot with a graphical display that will show you exactly how the infusion pump is performing, which basically means you have immediate issue recognition instead of after the facts. The simultaneous testing we already talked about, and the fact that we have plug-and-play accessories where you don't have to really, feed information in. You can barcode it in, or you can essentially use the keyboard to enter the data. In terms of accuracy, as I had mentioned before, this is a technology that has been proven over 20 years, and it's highly accurate. But also, standardized testing with automation enables you to get accurate results every time. Electronic data, we already talked about that. The ID5 has the ability to store all the results on board, and you can print it using the Hydrograph software, which is also included with the ID5. In addition to that, we also have test automation software called Answer, which allows you to tie ID5 with some of our other Fluke biomedical devices. So for instance, if you want to create one report that includes electrical safety, visual inspection, and performance characteristics, you can do that using Answer. But basically, when you're talking about infusion device analyzers, we want to get away from where you have to do a lot of the work manually. So that's really the biggest advantage of these analyzers. Now, there is one question we get a lot, and I'm sure it might come up later on as well, which is, are your analyzers compatible with all infusion pumps? One of the misnomers in the market is that infusion device testers that we have don't work with certain brands. For instance, let me give you an example. One of the questions I get routinely is around Alaris/CareFusion. We have users everywhere using the IDA technology with Alaris and CareFusion. And the way they use that is that, as you know, they have software. Alaris and CareFusion provide software that you have to use. So you can still use the ID5 because you have to calculate flow and pressure anyways. Excuse me. So because those characteristics have to be measured manually anyways, you need some kind of a mechanism to be able to understand either what the delivered volume is or the flow rate or the occlusion pressure. So although Alaris/CareFusion will say that we recommend this technique, the real issue there is they cannot recommend a specific analyzer. That doesn't mean that you cannot use an ID5 or an ID1 along with the Alaris software. In fact, we have hospitals that test multiple pumps, and the way to do that is to open various instances of the Alaris CareFusion software. It's software, so basically you can open multiple windows, one for each pump, connect the ID5, and basically begin testing. So you follow their template, and when you get to the point of delivered volume, make that measurement, enter that in, and you're basically going along. So the ID5 is compatible with Alaris CareFusion as well as pretty much any kind and any brand of infusion pump. This slide depicts how automation essentially works. So in the ID5, for instance, you select a template which is specified, you perform the test, and essentially at the end you print and save the data. So here you're seeing that for this particular syringe pump, you have a template that's going to be stored in the device, which will have, in this case, 2 flow measurements and an occlusion measurement. When you hit next on the template, it performs the testing, and finally it gives you the option of saving the result, saving and printing the result, printing the graph. Essentially, a number of options are available to you as far as data and documentation is concerned. Now, speaking of individual specifications here, so ID5 is designed for comprehensive testing. It has a flow rate measurement starting from 0.1 milliliters per hour to 1,500 milliliters. 2,600 milliliters per hour is shown, which means that as far as Fluke Biomedical is concerned, we specify the accuracy up to 1,500 milliliters per hour, but users can test up to 2,600. The maximum test duration is about 100 hours. So you can continue testing for 100 hours nonstop on any pump, and pump will do fine. And this is very common in some of the other countries around the world, by the way, the long duration of testing. The volume measurement is up to 10,000 milliliters. The ID5 also has PCA and dual flow measurement, so that's different from the low-end analyzer. It has pressure measurement of 0 to 45 psi as well. And both the ID5 and ID1 have a unique feature called Auto Start. Auto Start is a mode which only begins testing when fluid is detected, which means that, it gives you time to start the pump, but the ID5 or 1 are not going to start taking those calculations until they detect fluid. For those of you that are using the ID4, here's a quick chart that kind of shows you the differences between the 3 products. The ID4 is obsolete now. It has been replaced with the ID5, but a quick glance shows you that the ID5 is the only analyzer with built-in automatic testing, has the highest flow measurement. Both the ID1 and ID5 have a priming status indicator. It takes less than 2 seconds to prime, but it actually now has an indicator that will show you ready to go. You can end the test either on time or volume, so you really don't have to sit and wait for the infusion pump to stop. The ID5 will stop based on your preference. We've talked about the keyboard scanner option, the printer support. It's up to you. It's BCL5 based, so we've gone away from customer accessories. The ID1 is battery operated, as I had mentioned before. The ID5 is not. Both products, by the way, have an onboard manual and instructions, so you don't have to carry a manual around with you. All the instructions needed to operate the units are on board on the analyzer itself. And of course, when it comes to PC-based automation like Answer, as I just mentioned, both the ID5 and ID4 have it. We do not have that available with the ID1. So finally, for us at Fluke Biomedical, it's all about reliability, efficiency, and safety. So we can guarantee that you can test with confidence with our analyzers because it's all about patients first. So that is the end of this presentation. I'm really glad you joined us. We're going to go into the question and answer mode. But before we do that, just a couple of things. We have a training center, the Advantage Training Center, on our Fluke Biomedical website. Please visit it. It has a lot of powerful tools, including white papers, videos, quizzes that you can take advantage of, not just for this product, but a lot of our other products. And finally, you can connect with us through social media as well. It's your choice. We are available on several different websites. There's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course, YouTube. So questions, and I'm going to turn it over to Jamie.
Or John. Thank you so much, Shirin.
Or John.
Fantastic presentation. Thanks again to Fluke, you, Shirin. Wonderful knowledge, great participation from the audience. We do have a bunch of great questions we want to get to. Before that, though, if you look at attendees, if you look at your chat feature, there should be a web address there that Fluke has provided a video for more information regarding the IDA family. There should be a HTTP address in your chat feature. Okay, first question, Shirin. What kind of pumps can I test with the ID5 and ID1S?
Like I said, you can test any brand, any kind of pumps. Generally, volumetric, syringe pumps are the most common that we see, but these two analyzers are compatible with any kind of pump.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next one. Can your infusion device analyzers perform automated tests?
Yes, so the ID5 has both built-in automation and Answer, which is our optional software that you can purchase automation available as well. The ID1S is not automated. What we have with the ID1S is software we include, which is a complementary software that allows you to control, extract the data, generate reports, but that is not automation. The automation piece is only available with the ID5, both through built-in automation, which is included with the device, or through Answer automation, which is sort of an integrated automation piece that you can purchase separately.
Thank you. Okay, next one. How does the Answer software work with the ID5?
So the way the Answer software works with ID5 is that with the ID5 you can buy a plugin. We call these Answer plugins. It's a software module that you basically purchase and install on your PC. And the ID5 is connected to the PC. There are some templates that are included free of cost, but then there are others that you can create. There's custom templates you can create that basically mirror your OEM recommended procedures. So you can use our template, create your own. Once you start the template, the software takes control of the ID5 and basically guides the user in a stepwise manner, step by step as to exactly what needs to be done. And in the end of it, you get a report with the Answer software that you can either store in its format, the Answer format, or PDF. And when you create a PDF, you can, of course, attach it to your CMMS as well. The other advantage of Answer is you can integrate other things like electrical safety into it as well. So that is the simple mechanism. But the easiest way of explaining Answer is that Answer is taking your procedure, your preventative maintenance procedure, and creating an exact electronic replica of it. And you're just doing the testing in a stepwise manner through your PC instead of writing it by hand.
Okay, awesome. Okay, what makes the IDA1S different from other basic analyzers on the market?
Great question. So the IDA1S, the number one thing I think around infusion testing is trust. It's around technology. So the fact that our analyzer is based on technology which has been proven over 20 plus years is a great boon. We stand behind our accuracy. So we can speak for our analyzers in that regard for sure. But there are other things that are very powerful in the IDA1S, such as the ability to document. So you essentially have a visual format of what the testing is, but you also have software that comes with it that allows you to do a number of things after the fact. So yes, you can save the data on board, but then later on, you can tie that data directly to your CMMS, and that's a powerful feature. And again, because it's taking the human error element out of it, the data integrity is great as far as the IDA1S goes. And the third thing is around pressure measurement, right? So in terms of occlusion pressure or flow measurement, everything is done by the IDA1S. We don't require our end users to dial up knobs or do any kind of work as far as taking the measurements go. So it's truly an analyzer where it is interfacing with the infusion pump to get the data for you. So there again, you're again going away from complexity and simplifying it for the end users, and ultimately speeding testing.
Okay, next one. Have any manufacturers endorsed your product as a recommended way to test their infusion pumps?
No, they have not. I will say, because we can't go into specific names of manufacturers, that, you know, in speaking with manufacturers about product recommendations, there is a regulatory piece, which is what keeps, I think, manufacturers away from endorsing any products, because this is FDA-regulated products. One of the things, or I'm sorry, FDA-regulated subject matter in terms of infusion testing, and it's critical. The thing to remember is that if a manufacturer recommends a product, then they're actually tied to anything that is related to that product. So I can tell you that I've personally had conversations where it's not about the validity of the product, but it's really about the manufacturers don't do that for a certain reason. That's why they have very general recommendations on what to use. They will never prescribe what you use for infusion pump testing.
Okay, next one. What is the advantage that the IDA5 has over the IDA4 Plus?
So we went over some of those advantages a little bit earlier, but I'm just quickly going to go through them again. So as compared to the IDA4 Plus, the IDA5 has an expanded range for flow measurement. So the IDA4 was up to 1,000 ml. This is up to 1,500, and 2,600 is what it would measure, and you can, but we are only specifying the product to 1,500 milliliters. So don't be surprised if you're testing 2,000 and you see that the product is working great with good accuracy. So that's one. Number two, it has automatic testing built into the unit, which the IDA4 did not have. So we walk through the template side where you can see that you can prescribe what to test, and that's in the product. You don't really need any software to do that. You could just do it on the IDA5 standalone. Number three, it has plug and play. So we've gone away from custom accessories completely, where the IDA4 you had to buy a specific keyboard, a specific scanner, a specific printer. You don't have to do that anymore. You can use any USB compatible barcode scanner or keyboard, and any PCL5 or above printer. So those are some of the advantages over the IDA4.
Okay, great answer there. Okay, next one. Can the IDA1 or IDA5 be used for testing patient-controlled analgesia PCA pumps?
Yeah, well, the IDA5 has PCA testing, so I would recommend the IDA5 be used for that purpose.
All right. Do you have any automated procedures already built for Answer IDA5?
There are generic procedures for IDA5. When you get the plugin, you will get those generic procedures. And then these procedures are very, very easy to modify to specific models, because essentially you're looking at flow and occlusion measurements. So we provide you a baseline that you can easily customize to the pumps that you are testing.
Next one. Do you need to have Answer to have download data to our CMMS?
Great question. So it depends on the CMMS. There are some CMMS systems that have ability to talk directly to Answer and export the data and launch the templates. And there are a number of companies that are working to do that. If you want to attach the data to the CMMS, that's a completely different ballgame. That's not data extraction. That's essentially creating a report, and most CMMS systems let you do that. So if you want to do that, Answer is recommended, but what you can also do is take a hydrograph report and convert it to a PDF and basically attach that to the CMMS.
Next one. How many USB ports are on the IDA5?
There are multiple ports. So there's, I'll have to go and look at a product specifically, but I think there are at least 4 from what I can remember. Because we provided one for the barcode, one for the keyboard, one for the printer, and I think there's an extra one. So.
Okay, next one. Is it possible to customize, modify the actual test that the equipment offer to fit our needs? How many tests can be saved in the equipment memory capacity?
Modifying tests, I'm assuming you are talking about the ID5. Yes, you can modify the tests. You can create your own templates in the ID5 that are completely custom. As far as how many tests, there are thousands and thousands. It's got a lot of memory. So both the ID1 and ID5, as I mentioned earlier, the ID5 can run 100 hours continuously, and it updates the data several times a second. So essentially, we're talking about a lot of data capacity. So that's something you don't have to worry about in terms of how much data it can store. And that's true for the ID1 as well.
All righty, next one. Does the ID8 family require distilled water for testing?
We recommend distilled or deionized water, yes, because like I had mentioned, there is a burette inside the product. So just to make sure that the electronics are always clean, and there's no impact. We highly recommend deionized or distilled water because there can be essentially residue inside. So if you use distilled and deionized water, the product is going to last you a long, long time. And typically our products are, they go for decades. So it's a practice that we recommend to our users to make sure that the products are within accuracy, function well.
Okay, how frequently should the calibration be done?
Once a year is what we recommend for all of our products.
Okay, looks like the last one. We might have a couple more coming in. Make sure you get your questions in, guys. Okay, last one. What type of accuracy testing would you recommend if both IDA models are unavailable?
Oh, that's a good question. I would recommend you wait until the models are available and then use the ID1 and ID5 to perform the testing. But I will tell you that, in terms of manufacturers, most manufacturers use the scale and beaker method. The caveat there is that the scales that they use are thousands and thousands of dollars. They're between $10,000 to $30,000. So better served using one of our products, I think.
All right, what about this next one? Let's see, it's still coming in. Let's see here. How often do we need to clean? And how long does it take to clean?
You don't need to clean the products at all. You should just have them sent in for calibration once a year. What we do, which is, again, a highly recommended practice, is we include with the products a bottle of a solution called Micro 90. There's enough there to last you 10 to 20 years. We recommend that you create a certain solution if you want to make sure that, if you want to do that, because that, again, keeps the burette very clean. But that's completely up to the end users. It's just a recommended guideline. It's a very diluted solution that you have to prepare. So you basically add a little bit of it to the distilled water, and then you can use that water endlessly. So, but no, you do not have to clean the electronics at all.
Okay, that looks like all the questions we have had have come in. I want to thank again Shirin, and thank you to today's sponsor, Fluke Biomedical. Please visit the website, flukebiomedical.com, to learn more about their products and services. Attendees, remember, to obtain your certificate of attendance, you must complete the post-webinar survey at the conclusion of today's presentation. The survey will appear shortly on your computer screen. If you do not receive the survey, you can email us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Again, please visit imtechnation.com/webinars to register for our next webinar Wednesday, which will be on July 15th, featuring the one, the only Jerry Zion of Fluke Biomedical, as he discusses the 10 best practices for electrosurgical unit testing, tips to quickly and effectively test electrosurgical devices to ensure performance and safety. Again, thank you to Fluke. Thank you all to TechNation for joining us on another successful webinar Wednesday. We look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.